Welcome, listeners and viewers, to another show on Rising Above Shadows of Abuse. RASA, this is where we talk about matters relating to abuse, mental health, society, and culture. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to the delightful academia called Barbara With. She's an international peace activist, an award-winning author, publisher, psychic channel, composer, performer, inspirational speaker, and workshop facilitator. Welcome.
Well, thank
Barbara.
you, Grace. Thanks for having me. And hello to all your listeners.
You're welcome. So, I'm going to start the show by asking you this question. Who is Barbara With?
Who is Barbara With? It's kind of a loaded question. People have asked me that all my life. Who's Barbara With? Well, it's a joke. I'm with you today, Grace. But I am all those many things. I've been very, very blessed by God to have been born with a lot of capacity and talents. I started out as a singer, a songwriter when I was very, very young. So that was my first sort of love and profession. And then I became a psychic channel, which is an incredible story in and of itself. But I went on to learn that I could speak to those who had passed on. And then I got called into kind of a heavenly mission of channeling angels and eventually channeling Albert Einstein. And a lot of that information turned into what we call conflict revolution, which I think we're going to talk about today. And today I am at my late age. I've decided to dedicate the rest of my life to bringing this message forward. The world needs it. We're in such a pickle these days, both inner and outer worlds. So that's what I'm doing. And that's why I got up at 5:45 in the morning to talk with you and your listeners, because this is really important conversation to have, I think.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate it. So the next question is, you turned your childhood traumatic experiences to positives by co-founding Conflict Revolution. What motivated you to do this?
Well, it wasn't so much motivated as much as I was sort of divinely guided into it. I had, yes, a very traumatic childhood, which led to a lot of problems in my early adulthood, through childhood, but into my early adulthood. I had addiction problems, and sexual addiction and drug addiction and alcohol addictions, and yet I was really pursuing a path of being a professional musician. And after about 20 years, I was so exhausted and so addicted and so much in pain that I came in off the road. And that was when I discovered that I could channel. And through that channeling, which I knew what channeling was. I started channeling in 1987. I knew what it was because I had studied Edgar Cayce and Jane Roberts, and I had been to a psychic for many, many years who just happened to be the mother of my friend. So I knew what it was, but I was really surprised that I had this capacity. And yet it was very much like songwriting. I could just sit down and type and these beautiful messages would come out. And so after doing that for several years, I wanted to know what would these voices that I was channeling say in a group of people, like Edgar Cayce did. He used to have small groups in his living room. And so two associates, Teresa and Kim, and I started to do these groups. And these voices who said they were angels, which was a surprise to me. I was just sort of an antenna as far as I could see. There wasn't anyone else. They said they were here because they had this revolutionary idea about how humans could resolve conflict first within themselves as a pathway to what they said the byproduct would be world peace. And they needed humans to test these theories on. And so the three of us sort of became their guinea pigs. And sure enough, had our first fight, and we had been recording the sessions and transcribing them. So we brought the transcript out. And the operative message was, if you're involved in conflict, the root of your part of it is within you. And that switched up everything for us. And so we started actually studying this step-by-step process they were giving us and having miraculous results in our lives, not just resolving these inner traumas that we were having from all these years, but amongst ourselves, and things started to manifest differently around us. So that was really my pathway to this. And then when I went through probably the most traumatic time in my life, I've left my husband, I left where I lived to go pursue this work of world peace. I was a mess for about 4 years. It was really, really difficult. A lot of mental health issues, but I used conflict resolution through that time to address those traumas and have successfully really risen out of them for the most part. We all feel deeply about things at different times, but I have completely transformed my life using that process. So that's my kind of sideways journey into it.
Oh, thank you so much. So what you're saying that for there to be a conflict resolution, an individual needs to look within themselves to be able to resolve the conflict in a nutshell.
Yes, and that the byproduct of that is the result that you can't really get going right at the conflict. So in my case, the first time that I understood that, we had this fight, the three of us, and then we applied these principles and had this sort of aha moment between us. And that night I went to work, I was singing at a hotel in Minneapolis, and there was a waitress there who was always very cold to me. She never had a word to say to me, which was fine. You know, I go to work and that's just fine. But I went in that night and she was so talkative and so warm, and I thought, this is what these angels are saying, that when we do this internally, naturally we have this kind of effect energetically on what happens around us in a way that I couldn't have gone into the club and said, hey, how come you hate me? Let's talk about it, or whatever, to get such a profound effect. So I think that's why we call it revolution, because it isn't exactly like people understand how to resolve conflicts.
Thank you so much.